Hello everyone, one more day with one more lesson. We're still working with the inputs. Last time we were talking about so many different inputs, like starting from color and file, upload and load and range and hidden and search boxes and date and time. We did all of that last time. Today we're gonna work with things like sorry, let me just like radio buttons and checkboxes. So we're going to see how we're going to do this in HTML. Usually radio buttons we use when you have options or like questions, multiple choice questions, like when you go to college and you take multiple choice questions and you need to pick A or B or C or D. So you use the radio button because it's only one answer. So you need to guess or decide one among four different answers. So we use the radio buttons. But in some other cases, like when you have let's say you are ordering pizza and you need to specify all the toppings, use checkbox like I want a cheese. You click on the cheese. You check also the thick or the thin. You check the thick and you put black olives. You start checking. So there is a little bit difference, but in terms of the code, we'll see now how we do this and how we do that, and how we do the default things and stuff like that. So if you go back here to our HTML index HTML folder or file, we have the form here. Inside the form, the way you do we'll start with the radio buttons. So I'm gonna put here, I'll start with an input element, and this time I'm click radio, and I'm using a radio button, and I'm gonna pick an ID. I'm gonna give it a name, ID. We're gonna use an ID. You don't have to use an ID, but we're gonna use because we're gonna label it now in a minute. Okay, so an ID, maybe I'll call this one small, because I'm gonna pick among small, mid, and mid-size, and small size, mid-size, and large size. So I'll pick that first one. I'll give it a name small, the ID attribute small, and now let me save and reload the page here so you guys can see. See here, you see that little radio box here on the top left corner, and it doesn't mean anything. So we're gonna put a label. I'm gonna put a label here. So I'm gonna put a label, and since the four attributes, since I have small for ID, I'm gonna use the same exact thing. Small, it has to be the same exact thing, and I'm gonna use the label here. Let me call it small. Small. And now you notice I have the label under the input elements. So you notice last lesson we were talking about we put the label on the top of the input element. Now we have it in the bottom. Why we do that? So we want to have the radio. So let me reload this now. You want to have the radio button before the label. So that's before the label. Another thing you need to do also, when we do the input and we have the ID and the type attribute and the ID, we also have to have the value also. The value attribute, it's very important, because this is the one I'm going to put small on it. I know the label is small and also the value is small, because when you submit the form, you want to submit the value attribute for that specific element. So put here small. So anyway, that's one. Let's do this. Let's do this within a div actually, because that's we all know that the input and the label elements, these are inline elements. And then to avoid having everything on the same line, we want to have it like a block to deal with blocks. So we need to use the div. So I'm going to put a div here, and I'm going to move the code here that I just had over here. So we're going to have the div actually like that. So let me save and format what I have here so it looks nice. Okay, so now if I reload, so you have it that way. So we're gonna have another two different radio buttons with the mid size and the large size. So I'm going to copy, for the sake of time, copy and paste. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go over here, and this time I'm going to just, let's see, format this whole thing. The second one, radio, then I'm going to change the ID to I'm going to change the ID to mid, and that's mean you have to change the 4 for medium as well, or mid, and we're here for the label for medium. Okay. And then here also the value for medium. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing here with we'll change the small here, the last one, we'll make it mid. I'll make it large. Let me make it large size, and I'll change the label also as well to large. Now when I save, and you can see small, medium, and large, but you will notice something here. When you click, you can click in all of them. That's not good. It shouldn't work that way. Radio buttons, you can click on one and that one will be active. As soon as you click on another one, the first one will be deactivated, and the new click will activate the new one. So that's not the case here. So let me show you a real life example. So if I go to my Mac machine and I go here to my setting, let me go to my general setting on my accessibility, and in accessibility I will go, I remember appearance, I think. Yeah, see here we have some radio buttons. See, when I click on one scrolling, they're automatically based on mouse trapped. So when you activate one button, it deactivates the other. So that's how it works with radio buttons. It's different when you work with checkbox. The checkbox you can check more than one, but in radio button it's only one. So you notice here the 3 of them. That's not good. So the way you fix that is you need to add in the input element. In all these input elements, the first and the second, the small and the medium and the large, we need to add another attribute, and that attribute is the name attribute, and you need to give it all the same name. That way we'll link it all together. So I'm going to give it the name that I'm going to give here is size. Okay, since I'm doing size, now I will save and reload. So now let me reload again to make sure it's reload. Now when I click on small, now small is active and the other 2 is deactive. When I click on large, see what's going to happen now. So the large is active but the small is deactivated. If I click on medium, the large is deactivated and the medium is active. This is how it works. This is how it should be, actually, logic wise. This is how it should be when you deal with radio button. Another thing we also need to know, when you submit the form, we need to see something. So let me add a submit here element, or a submit button in the form here. I will put an input. Okay. And I will use the submit type in the type attribute, and let me save. So now when I click here to reload, you see submit button here. I want you to see what's going to happen here. Let me just make this big so you guys can see the whole thing. I want you to look and focus next to, let me reload this, next to the in the URL here, after the index HTML and the question mark. When I click on let me make it just yeah, when I click on medium here, I pick medium. As soon as I submit, see what's going to happen here. I want you to focus here on the URL. You notice here it says size medium. When I click on large and submit, it says size large. When I click on small and submit, it says here size small. And you can even see it inspect. If I go and inspect that, go to inspect, and then you can go here on the network, and reload the page and look at the size here, size small, so you can see it even in the inspect, so you can inspect it that way. Okay, so let me just reload and go back to the, so that is when we deal with radio button. Okay, now we want to see now if we are working with checkbox, the difference is. So all what I'm going to do now here, I'm going to change, I'm going to leave everything for the sake of time, I'm going to leave everything, but I'm going to change the type from radio to checkbox. So this radio and this radio and this radio, I'm going to change them to checkbox, and we'll see now. So that's the checkbox for the three of them. And when I reload, let me save here to make sure it's saved, and I reload. So now they are checkbox. Now when I click on small and then I click on medium, you notice it's you can have more than one. So it's not, it doesn't work like the radio button, and this is what it should be like. So now when I submit, see what's going to happen. Let's say I pick the small and the medium. I'm going to submit now, and I want you to notice what's going to happen here. Let me reload this and pick small and medium, and look at the on the URL here. I would submit. So you notice here it says size small and size is medium. So now let's change it from medium and large. So when I submit, it says size medium and size large. So you can have more. And when I do the inspect, if I go to the network and reload the page, and you will notice here it has the size medium and large. And this is the case with checkboxes, not the case with button. Button is only one answer, like multiple choice questions and answers. So let me just go back and make it small again. And sometimes you want to make a default. In some cases, you want to leave to the customer a default. One of them is checked, and then he can change. The customer can change, but at least one is checked. To do this, we need to use the checked attribute. So let's say I want to do the small to be the default. So you get in the small here, and before type or after type, anywhere, you just add the checked attribute. Checked, just like that, and then save. Let me reload. When we reload, we will see that the small here will be checked. When you reload, small checked. Every time you submit and then you reload, it's still checked. So that this is how you do the default for either for the checkbox or button or the radio button. Actually, that's all what I want you to know about radio button and check button. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk about it's still going to be an input, it's talking about options. So I will see you guys next lesson.